EWTN Radio and you. It is your show. I'm Jerry Usher along with Debbie Georgiani and the show team in place. Want to tell you real quickly about Catholic News Agency and email. You can rely on CNA to cover the mission and activities of the Catholic Church, including social, political, moral, and cultural issues from a perspective of faith. And for the latest Catholic news, visit CatholicNewsAgency.com. It's an online resource from EWTN News, and you can get timely news updates directly to your email inbox. Visit EWTN.com and click on subscribe.
Okay, so Jerry, we need our Take Two family to weigh in on this question. Do you think your child is an amazing athlete? Okay, do you think they could be the next? I looked up Jerry, you'll get a kick out of this. I looked up the 50 top male athletes ever. Of course, Michael Jordan comes up, right?
Sure.
Or Muhammad Ali, or Michael Phelps, or Wayne Gretzky, or Tiger Woods. And that was the male side, and there's female athletes as well. So do you think your child is a great athlete, and do you support that? Do you think they could really make it in the professional arena? Or do you think that it's a wonderful way to just get them to learn some great discipline and some understandings about life? Because we learn so much through the sports about what goes on in life, even for business negotiations. A lot of people credit their sports upbringing when they go into business. So do you think your child's an athlete, and do you support that? We want to hear from you at 833-288-3986. That's the number to call. Call quickly. We're going to go fast with this. It's kind of exciting, and you'll see how it definitely weaves into our spirituality.
Yeah, talk about how much you like to promote the benefits of athletics in your family, among your children, striking a balance, obviously. There are a lot of athletic leagues and events that take place on weekends, for example, and that can draw families away from going to church and things like that. So how do you strike a balance while still, your kids come to you, they want to be involved in soccer or basketball or football, in school or outside of school, in city leagues and so forth, maybe even make all-star teams and traveling teams and so forth. Do you see athletic potential in any of your children, one or more of them? And if so, how do you encourage them along that path? Maybe they're being recruited. Maybe you already have a son or a daughter who's playing, at a major high school level or a college level. We want to talk about this today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. With your participation, let's go Take Two family, 833-288-EWTN, 833-288-3986.
I have to tell you a funny story, but it's a true story. I had two boys. My youngest had zero interest in sports. He was more of was into science and engineering and everything like that. He just had zero interest in it. And I tried to get both my boys to play golf because I grew up playing golf, and they were just, it was bad. It was not good. So they decided to take up the normal sports, Jerry, like soccer and baseball and basketball and everything. And my youngest, I'll never forget it. We signed him up for baseball. We were so excited. And the first or second game, they put him in the outfield, and he was in the outfield on the ground picking grass. And the coach said, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I am so bored." And so when he came back after the first game, I said, honey, I don't think this is really, your cup of tea. This is not going to work out. So he goes, "Yeah, Mom, I'm really kind of bored." He was bored of it. It's interesting how some kids really are drawn to sports, right? And then some are not. Maybe there's something else they would prefer to do. But when we do see that, like you said, Jerry, that ability, those gifts that they have, those athletic ability, and then doesn't our minds automatically go to, you could be the next Michael Jordan, you could be the next Tiger Woods, and then we start spending all that time with them trying to get them in that when they, what do they say? It's like so small, less than 1% 10% or something actually make it to the professional level. So it's very, very interesting, folks. This is a great topic to talk about, and women's sports has been in the news lately. And we're always, I mean, we seem like everybody loves to talk about sports. So would you call in? You do not have to be Catholic to call in. We want to hear from you. Tell us your experience of when your children wanted to play sports and what that did to your family. Was it a beneficial, like Jerry said, or maybe it took away from your spiritual lives? Maybe you had to choose sports over religious education. That's a difficult thing. 833-288-3986.
Well, we see, like in the Olympics, for example, certain sports are definitely for younger athletes, like gymnastics. You know, you have 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 13-year-olds. Tennis, a lot of times you'll have very young players. And you know, maybe again, we're talking today about, do you have a child or more than one child with athletic potential that you look at and you see that and you want to really try and encourage it without forcing? You know, there have been stories. I remember one of the great, I think it was a USC Trojan quarterback, Todd Marinovich, went on to play in the NFL for the Oakland Raiders. Mm-hmm. And they did a documentary on him, how his dad just really tried to mold him into this athletic machine, you know, with the perfect diet and training and all of the, you know, these routines, Debbie. And, you know, it can kind of rob, I think, a child of some of the freedom, you know, the free-spiritedness that they have growing up. So we want to talk about this today. If you've got children, chances are they're involved in sports, athletics of some kind. Do you see that? Are they good? Do you see them possibly moving on to higher levels? We want to talk about that and how you all handle that as a family and as a parent. 833-288-3986.
Matt Gabinski is waiting to take your call. Let's talk about that, about this idea of when our kids are interested in sports, you know, how do we promote that? How do we support that? Do we discourage it? Maybe we had a bad experience going through something of that nature, and we say to our kids, "Nah, you'd be better. Your time's well spent just reading a book or something like that." That happens in families. We'd like to hear from you. 833-288-3986. And Jerry, you said something that kind of struck a nerve with me. You said something to the effect of when kids are young, and if you, I think you were saying this, where you're kind of pressuring them as parents, you know, how that could really kind of rob them of their chance to have like just kind of kid spirit freedom, right? Well, when I was growing up, you know, I shared this before on the show many times. My dad really wanted me to become a professional golfer. He was living, you know, vicariously through me, and I was the youngest of six. He tried with everybody else. It didn't quite work. And so with me, he put all his effort, and I was getting there. But Jerry, that's exactly what happened. I mean, I was 6 and 7 years old, and I was hitting 150 golf balls before I started school in the morning when all my friends were getting ready. And we didn't have normal magazines in our house. We had Golf Digest and all these golf magazines. I mean, it was really bizarre. I used to have to sneak out to my friends' houses just to read like a normal magazine.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you make a really good point, and that does kind of you can either embrace that as a child, or you could become a little resentful. I actually became a little resentful.
Well, that's interesting, you know, and I played every sport growing up, pretty much had to, but I also wanted to. I went to a high school of 150 less than 150 students in the top 4 grades, and we were not really very good at any of those sports. But if anybody in my family saw potential that maybe wasn't there, it was me. I'm just going to come clean. I was going to go to Notre Dame and play basketball, and I couldn't. I couldn't even start on my own small town school varsity basketball team. So, but I did have one brother who was recruited, my brother John, to play running back for a community college in Northern California. Nice. So it's a big part of our lives, folks, and we want to talk about it today. You know. sports experiences maybe that you have had, or as you look out on the lives of your kids, and you see the potential, the athletic, the ability that they have.
The ability, yeah.
Yeah, the ability, and you're wondering, okay, what do we do with this? Because let's face it,
Costs a lot of money too.
well, it costs a lot of money. It really does, and it takes a lot of time. And then, like we all know, kind of the nastiness of when you get into major, especially professional sports, it can be really, dog eat dog out there, So we want to talk about, is this something you would want for your kids? 833-288-3986.
One open phone line. Okay, if you feel prompted by the Spirit, remember, you don't have to be Catholic to call in. We consider you part of the Take Two family. Please call this number, 833-288-3986. And if you're going to be speaking about your kids and their athletic abilities, please, if you'd like us to put their name in our prayer book, I want to do a special shout out to our dear, wonderful friends at Annunciation Radio, Jerry. The staff is going to have a staff retreat day in Detroit at Blessed Solanus Casey, the center, and they're taking, in general, they take two family intentions. And we've had that before from other listeners, taking it to Blessed Solanus Casey. And
Beautiful.
we just, isn't that wonderful? See, we're all a family.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, we got a lot of calls we're going to get to here. Our conversation about athletic potential in your kids, or maybe it was your own experience. 833-288-3986. We'll start in New York. We're going to go to Don, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Don. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to share with you and your audience the experience I had when I was raising my son. My father was in the minor league system for the Philadelphia Phillies, so he got up to a pretty high level in baseball. And I had asked him one day, I said, Dad, what does it take to make it into the major leagues? And he said 98%, and he pointed to his mind, and 2% talent. And I never understood that until I experienced what I experienced with my son. My son had tremendous baseball potential, was being scouted, but then all of a sudden a switch went off, and he just didn't want to play baseball anymore. So the point that I'm making is, you may have a child who does have talent, but if that real burning desire is not there, it's going to be difficult for the parent. There's really not that much you can do at that point, because you're not going to be able to really instill that in them. That has to be that self-motivation.
Oh, Don, you are spot on. Absolutely spot on. I will never forget it. My dad used to say the same thing. 98% in the mind and in your focus, mental, right?
Wow.
And then 2% talent. But Don, I will tell you that when I was about 15 years old, my dad called me into his office and he said, "Listen," he goes, "you have the talent." He goes, "You could make it." He goes, you have no interest in doing this, do you? You'd rather go ahead and start dating, right? And I said, "Yeah, Dad." And that was the end of it. I mean, he knew my head, my mind, my focus, my intention. It wasn't there. I was kind of like switching every time I had to switch. I had to switch from being like a normal teenager over to being an athlete. Right, Don?
Right. Yep. Yeah, I know it could cause frustration in the family if it's not handled the right way. So that's why I'm kind of, you got to, the talent is the gift, but if the child doesn't have that burn inside them, they're, and, even with my father was a talented catcher, and he made it into the minor leagues. And at some point, he couldn't, things that he saw, he used to tell me the politics and things, and that he saw at the minor league level, that kind of disheartened him. So he ended up deciding to leave. So there's a lot of things that go into becoming a major league professional that, as a parent, it'd be good to really, keep that all in perspective. So.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I think you're right, and that mental part has to really be so strong because athletic ability is one thing, and I'm not going to say great athletes are a dime a dozen because the great athletes really truly do rise above the rest, the Michael Jordans and so forth. But you've got to deal with so many things, especially Don at that level. You've got to deal with decisions by club management and the coaches and the media. If you don't perform, the
Yep.
media are going to be on you, and so
Yep.
that you've got to be so strong mentally. So I think you're absolutely right, and God bless you. It's
Good advice.
yeah, really good advice, and it sounds like you probably handle this very, very, in a very healthy way with your son. It sounds like.
Well, we had a little rough moment. I remember I had gotten a call from a high level team that had seen him, and wanted him to come out for the team the following season. And I was so ecstatic, and it was at that point when he told me, "Well, Dad, I really don't want to play baseball anymore." And then I said to him, "I think you're going to make a mistake. You're good." And my father, that a few months before that, had been at a game of his, and my father turned to me and he said, "Don, I think he has it." And with that in my heart, to hear that from my father, oh my goodness. And then my father passed away a few days after that, unexpectedly. So I always had that kind of, and then we get this call, and no matter how much talking and explaining I did with him that day, I said, just go to the tryout, see if it changes you. I drove him all the way out to this team. This was a high exposure team. Pros would scout this team, and colleges.
We're going to hit a break here,
He
Don.
wouldn't get out of the car. He wouldn't get out of the car.
Oh, boy. Well, Don, in God's plan, I'm sure, hope and pray that things have worked out beautifully for your son, for your entire family. And thank you so much for listening today and sharing what you did. It was a very great way to get our phone call started on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, talking about athletic potential in your kids.
Faith is a precious gift from God. As the largest religious media network in the world, EWTN has an important role in educating others about our Catholic faith and spreading the good news of salvation. We invite you to explore our numerous pages of historical faith documents, prayers, teachings, and other current issues in Catholicism today. Visit EWTN.com and click Catholicism. EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
Want to be notified when Take Two with Jerry and Debbie goes live on Facebook? Follow EWTN Radio's Facebook page and click the bell icon to be notified.
In Matthew 13, Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is like a pearl of great price that a merchant would sell everything he has to buy." If you think about it, God loves you that way. You're his pearl of great price. He gave everything for you. And he wants you to love him and other people the same way. The pearl of great price costs you. Of all the crazy things that came out of the sexual revolution, the dumbest is the notion of free love. A love that doesn't cost you anything. I prefer real love. Real love binds itself to the beloved. Real love demands the sacrifice of your time, your attention, your self-centeredness, your thinking. Real love leads to vocations and vows that bind you to priesthood or religious life or marriage. Real love leads to committed and rewarding friendships. It makes us fathers, brothers, spouses. It makes us human. Real love's the path to real life. And while it's anything but free, it's also the only path to real freedom. This is Chris Stefanik from Real Life Catholic.
Hi, this is Janet Williams. You don't have to be a woman to enjoy Women of Grace tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern here on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
We're talking about young athletes today and how our parents and grandparents can support that interest, or maybe you want to discourage it a little bit because it's too much sports leaning and not enough on the youth camps and the religious education and stuff. You got to have that huh? The what?
Academics.
Academics, yeah, that's true. Oh, that's true. I had a friend who all he thought about was sports, and he suffered greatly. with his subjects. Yeah, that's a good point, Jerry. We do have an open phone line here on Take Two, 833-288-3986. Back to the phones we shall go to Pauline in Akron, Ohio, listening on the Ave Maria radio app. Please, Pauline, talk to us about youth and sports today.
Well, my kids are now grown, but I have 4 kids, and they were kind of close in age. It was 5.5 years from top to bottom. My husband traveled greatly during their growing up years, so I basically was a single mom, and I discouraged sports. I went to Catholic schools, and I was very sad that they had games on Sundays mornings when we're supposed to be at Mass. To play in high school for the girls, they had to do travel ball, which required you to travel all over the state, which I was like, I can't do that. I can't drag 3 children all over the place. My kids did play sports. I allowed them to play 1 sport a year. I said, that's it. I can't do more than that. And I literally ended up having to take a year off from sports for my own mental and emotional health. I told them we're taking a 1-year sabbatical. I can't drive again. So I think our culture, including our Catholic schools, have way gotten this out of control.
Yeah.
And it takes over the entire family. There's a lot of good that can come from sports. There's a lot of discipline that can come from sports. But I think that the level that our culture thinks that each kid's going to be making it to the majors, and they have to do this sport since they were in 3rd grade or lower to be a chance to play in high school, is not healthy. I don't think it's healthy for growing bodies. I don't think it's healthy for them mentally or emotionally to feel that kind of pressure that young.
Yeah, I think that's a very important word, Pauline, pressure. There is so much of that on them. And I'd love to hear if there are any youth coaches listening right now to weigh in on this conversation today. And do you feel the pressure? I think a lot of this comes from, the coaches feel the pressure to win, or they're not going to be able to keep their jobs. And the kids, the parents sometimes get, a little bit out of balance with this, like you're talking about, Pauline. I love your approach, and the fact that you had to take a year off as a mom from this, I think, is very, very indicative. But the fact that you said your kids still played sports, and it was like that in my family. I mean, we knew we weren't going off to Notre Dame or anything like that, but we all went out and we did reap the benefits, like you're talking about. The discipline, the learning to lose, the learning to win, which we didn't do a whole lot of. So. I think there are still a lot of good benefits without this, kind of spiraling out of control. Debbie, I don't know what you think. But.
Balance. I think it's very important, Pauline. And I will share with you a little confession. I was actually really relieved when my youngest son didn't really want to play sports. Like, they go through the whole thing, the whole gamut of sports, the baseball and the soccer and the basketball, and it kind of cycles with the seasons. And I was so happy when I was like, whew, this is great. We don't have to go to practices. So I was fine with it. But my oldest likes to play sports. I came from a sports family, of course. My husband plays basketball, loves it. I mean, so it's really quite interesting. But it's, again, balance. But I totally see your point. It really could wear a parent out. And it sounds like that in how many boys did you say you have?
One boy. I had 3 daughters, so I had 4 children total. And I was an athlete in high school, but you didn't have to start your sport at such a young age to make a high school team back then.
Right. That's very true. And let me share something real quick. You talked about the Catholic, how we have to have the balance and the Catholic, culture and everything. When I was in religious education, I was a DRE. I had a lot of high school kids come in their uniforms to religious education. And I was fine with it. I said, listen, don't even go home and change, just come in your uniform. And they would. Do you know most of them would end up sleeping through religious education, not because it was boring, but they would say to me they were exhausted. They were absolutely exhausted. And that can be problematic. But anyway, I just wanted to add that. Pauline, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, downtime and having time with your thoughts is healthy. And when they're so structured and so scheduled that they're running school, practice, homework, bed, it's a bad cycle for them mentally and emotionally for the growing kids. My kids, did not like me a lot growing up, but I just stuck it. I was like, I can't do this, and I'm not getting into this culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not
Well,
anymore, but
yeah. Good, wonderful. Thank you, Pauline, for being part of the conversation today. We so appreciate you listening to Take Two, being part of the Take Two family, and participating today at 833-288-3986. We're talking about sports today, especially as it relates to your kids as they're growing up. Do you see athletic potential in them? Do you try and encourage that? Obviously, if someone has the potential to go a long way in sports, I think it should be encouraged. Obviously, keeping in mind the other important things in life that we're talking about here right now, but that's how a lot of people make their living, let's face it. So certainly nothing wrong with it as long as it's all done in that balance that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to move next to Scott in Washington on the EWTN app. Hello, Scott. Welcome to Take Two.
Good morning. What an awesome topic. I guess I can come at this from two different angles. I've coached 4 of my 6 kids in different sports and thoroughly loved it, enjoyed it. And I guess my perspective maybe was a little bit different because you asked the question a little bit earlier about, hearing from coaches and the stress. It was always voluntary, right? So a little bit different from stress, but some of that was travel ball too, but it was still a voluntary position. And my whole goal was try to make a positive impact on the kids so that they could learn some life lessons and hopefully when they get out into the real world. And a lot of these, especially girls that I've coached, all graduated from high school this last week, will have some life lessons that they can take with them. But for my own kids, my perspective was always, I'm not going to force you to play sports. I've coached kids who were forced by their parents to play sports, and it wasn't fun for me, and it wasn't fun for the kid. And my kids understood that, and they all but one came and said, I think I'm done. I'm like, perfect, that's great. I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed it, but there's no pressure to have that requirement that you have to play sports. My youngest, however, is going off in the fall to play college softball, and we've had a lot of time we spent over the last 6-8 years together. I mean, hundreds and thousands of miles and time at the field and practice. She's in the batting cage every night. And I asked her a couple of weeks ago, I said, when did it really flip in your mind that you wanted to go play college? And she's unbelievably athletically gifted. And she said, I was probably about 14 and I realized, hey, I'm really pretty good at this. I might want to try this in college. I think this would be fun. And from that point on, the light bulb went on and she really, really worked hard at it. And it's paid off. So, and I think one of the values that I see out of it is we had a conversation a couple of years ago. We were on the road and she jokes about spending way too much time with me, but she also made a comment. She says, Dad, I tell my friends that you're my best friend, nice. Which really hit home. But, other kids will say, well, she's your favorite. It's not that she's a favorite. It's that we have something in common, a bond, because we both love the sport and we spent so much time together that it's strengthened that bond. But that was a pretty touching moment.
Yeah. I'll bet it was. And you, like you said, you've had, both perspectives, that of a parent and that of a coach. And I loved what you said, Scott. Your goal was to try to make a positive impact on the kids. And I go back to when I was in high school. That was as far as I went in playing sports. And I remember the coaches, they weren't in it for fame and fortune, obviously, and I'm sure you haven't been either. But really, to make a difference, that is the one thing I think that is the common factor that in all of the coaches that I've ever played for and have known about. You have to have that passion for really forming the kids, whether they go on in sports or not. You have to care about their character, their formation, who they're going to be as adults, contributing to society and the world and the church, as it were. And so I'm so glad to hear you, put that particular perspective on it.
So a couple things, Scott. I just wanted to say I got pretty emotional because I lost my dad in 2010, and I shared a similar bond that you and your daughter share, that precious bond. I was the youngest of six, like your daughter is, and it was amazing to have that special connection with my dad being the youngest. And so I love that you share that with your daughter. 6 kids that you have raised. Wow. Way to go. You need some kind of Take Two virtual award for that. That's awesome, Scott. You sound like a great dad. May we, if you feel comfortable, may we have your daughter's first name so we could put her in the prayer book to pray that she has a wonderful college experience playing softball?
Yeah, I would love that. This has been this was a year of life lessons for her in her senior year. She suffered her first big injury last year, had to have shoulder surgery in December, and it was a struggle, both physically coming back from that and mentally. And I know going to college that has her a little bit worried. So yeah, prayers would be awesome. Her name is Victoria.
Victoria. Oh, she's victorious. I love that. Victoria, tell her.
Well, okay, so she's adopted from Ghana, and so I'm glad you said that, because just as another side note, when we adopted her, my wife met her birth mom and asked her why she has the name Victoria, and she was told that when she was born, she was so little and so frail health-wise, they didn't know if she would survive, so they named her after 3 months Victoria because she was victorious. So,
wow.
That is beautiful.
Oh, that is beautiful. Wow. Amazing story, Scott. You got to keep us posted on how she's doing in college, okay?
Thank you, yes.
All right. Awesome, Scott. Thanks for all you've done in your family and here on this program.
Incredible.
Appreciate that.
That's incredible.
Yeah, what beautiful stories. I mean, who would have thought when she was just a little tiny infant that she would be now, a prospect for, just doing great things in college softball.
Yeah. Maybe we'll see her on TV. That'll be fun. I love that. Okay, so let's go to Stacy, and Stacy's in South Carolina. Sirius XM 130 is the way. Stacy's listening, and welcome.
Hi, Stacy.
Hey there. Thanks for having this subject on. I think it's really important right now. I've called in before, and I'm the mother of 12 kids, ages 33 to 11. So we've had a lot, and sports are important in our family. One way I addressed the hectic nature of sports was to homeschool them. So we could spend time together at home, because the afternoons were running around crazy with their activities, music and sports. So that's just right off the plate. But all of them have participated in 6. Really the first 5 all swam, and the oldest really decided she liked ballet more, and she had a gift for it. So she went off on that and ended up going. South Carolina has a free public 4-year high school for the humanities and arts. So when she was 14, she went for 4 years. So she went from homeschool to residential school. And then the other kids also swam. One of them became a state champion in high school, and played club water polo at his college university. But some of the other kids were not as gifted, and I never said to them, you're not gifted, so
right.
You can't swim, you can't do doubles. They didn't really want to do doubles anyway, and so we always just allowed them to do as much as they wanted to swim. So you can only do 3 days a week. If not a serious competitive swimmer, then that's fine. And that daughter swam all through high school, and we had that approach with her piano as well. And now she just finished her fellowship in pediatric oncology and is the wife and has 2 kids.
Wow.
So it let her dabble her toes in whatever she enjoyed at a particular level. And so I think that's an important point, is let the child drive the level of involvement. And then by the time the other kids came around, the 6th, 7th, and all them, I was exhausted and done, and I'm like, I just cannot handle it. Much driving, I was done. But then I missed what swimming had to offer in terms of discipline and the good things. So they've gradually gotten back into doing sports at a more moderate level. So the seventh child was a late bloomer, and he ended up playing football in elementary school and middle school. And when he was a junior in high school, he just started to blossom. And he ended up being recruited as a preferred walk-on to a D1 university. And that's been an interesting experience to see the inside of D1 athletics. And a main point I really want to stress is athletes are human beings, not objects to be betted on, watched for their potential, and children are to be loved and encouraged for what they would like to do. To that end, I'm driving one of my daughters home who has my 11th child who has a gift for dance, and she has chosen to continue on at a higher level. She's 14. But she also became a pretty good runner during COVID when dance shut down. So she runs 10 miles a day, and I was a runner too. And like me, she decided she did not want to run in high school when she goes next year because she wants to run for the love of running. And so she has expressed to me when people ask her, "Oh, are you going to run in high school?" She feels kind of pressure on her as if they are actually saying, "You should run in high school." So I've helped her process. Well, actually, I think they just want to have a point of commonality, and you can say back to them, what I hear you saying is you think I should run, but what I actually am saying is I love to run for the joy of running, and for the parents or whoever just to accept that it's okay to love being active without wanting to go to the top of the game.
Yeah. Wow, Stacy. I'm tired too, as you describe your experience. But first of all, God bless you and your husband for having the 12 kids. And you've said so many, I think, beautiful and important things. A couple of things I wanted to zero in on. One, you made the comment, let the kids drive what it is that they want to do. I mean, kids are entrusted to parents, and God is going to gift each and every one of us with something. And you mentioned swimming, and you mentioned football, and you mentioned dance, and you mentioned running. And every one of us has a gift and abilities in a certain area, and I'm glad to hear that you were able to get your kids into sports, with the homeschooling, because I know sometimes that can be a little bit difficult, if they're not in a public, like a school system. I'm very proud to say, I've mentioned this before, one of my nephews who was homeschooled goes to Christendom College in Virginia right now, and they just won the NCAA men's rugby championship this last year in Houston. So, and he was a homeschooled young man as well. So. Great job, Stacy, with those kids, and you still got a few of them going through the
33 to 11. You got Stacy, you're amazing. You're like super mom. I love it. You're incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today. You are just incredible. She's amazing. 12, Jerry. I know Jerry we were both getting exhausted just hearing the schedule. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, real quickly, I want to mention Mother Angelica Live Classics, Tuesday night, 8 Eastern Time on EWTN TV and radio. EWTN foundress Mother Angelica shares talks about Mary's trust and Corpus Christi. Please, folks, not just one folks, all of you, check out Mother Angelica Live Classics and pass it on Facebook. I've been seeing it popping up on Facebook. What a good use of social media.
Yeah, indeed.
Yes.
All right, we're going to get to a few more calls here, time permitting, on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Mike is next in Maryland, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hello, Mike. Welcome. Thanks for waiting.
Hi, Jerry. Thanks for having me on.
Sure.
I just wanted to pass. So my wife and I'm a retired military. We were invited to a dinner that actually had a number of. This was a little while back. It had a number of Medal of Honor winners that were invited to the dinner, and we had an opportunity to engage with them, and it was very memorable. And the one thing, when you're a military, and these guys are rock stars for us, and the one thing that struck me was about them was how humble they were. And I asked a question I asked is, what in your life, when you look back on, what do you think affected you when you were in this sort of situation where you won this high honor and award? What was it that what you look back on that had the most to do with you being able to do what you did in a situation in battle? And I'll never forget. And I tell this story to a coach. What a coach is when I get an opportunity to talk to somebody that does coaching. And the one gentleman talked about his coach in high school. He was a running back, was a all-county running back, and it was one of their first games of the year. And he said he'll never forget this coach. He said they beat this team easily, and he really didn't have to play that hard. I mean, it was a pretty easy game. And after the game, the coach asked him. He said, "Jim, tell me why I should keep you on the team?" And he said, "What do you mean, Coach? What are you talking about?" He said, "Never mind. Just pack your gear. You're off the team." And as he was cleaning out his locker, he's like, "I can't go out like this." It's like he came back. He said, "Coach, what do I have to do to stay on the team?" He said, "Well, the first thing you have to do is why do you think I asked you?" And he said, "Well, I understand, sir. I wasn't really putting out my best effort." He said, "Well, the first thing you have to do is apologize to your teammates. And then and we'll see after that." So, I mean, he was sitting on the bench. He was allowed to remain on the team. He was sitting on the bench. I think he was riding a pine when they played their cross-county rival that they lost to, just barely. But he said he'll never forget that lesson. And that lesson, when he was in a situation with a terrible situation in Vietnam, he said he never forgot that. And I'm just the people that spend their time with this is, of course, Vietnam, so this happened in the late 50s, 60s, early 60s, but this situation. So it was a while ago, but I think what he brings to it, it's not about winning, it's about character development, and it certainly developed a great character, and I just wanted to share that.
Wow.
Yeah. That's a powerful story, Mike. Very powerful. And as you were sharing it, I was thinking, coaches. I was thinking the coaches that I had in school, and I'm thinking, they could really promote success and character building, and some can really, not because they mean to do this, but maybe they're just not really focused, or they're maybe tired, or something else is going on. They can actually discourage athletes as well. Sometimes it happened with my husband in high school. It was very unfortunate. A coach and my husband didn't seem to quite see eye to eye, and it was demoralizing for my husband. And so it's very interesting. The coaches play a big part in the character building, the athletic development, the path and the passion. I think the coaches really are very instrumental in the athletes, especially when they're young. What do you think, Jerry?
No, I agree. I remember getting yanked from games before because I was either, maybe not putting forth my best effort, or my man in football was beating me or something. And, I think nowadays, I don't know how kids, handle that nowadays, Back then, it was just the way it was, and we looked up to our coaches and we respected them. And, I still remember, I've stayed in touch with many of my high school coaches over the years.
Wow. Still today? Wow.
To this day, yeah.
That's amazing.
For the good things that they instilled in me, yeah, absolutely. So God bless all of our coaches, men and women.
Yes. Well, what a great discussion we had today. More to think about. And we want to thank Tom and Chris and the others. We're not going to get to you. Please email us. You have some very interesting stories about being an umpire and about having the conversations about sports and faith before you get married. That is true. Very true. 83. I was going to give the number again. Don't call the number. Email us. take2@EWTN.com, because the show is almost over, Jerry, and we've got a special announcement for tomorrow.
Well, we're going to do something a little bit special because it's the 7th anniversary of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie and you. Folks, your show is 7 years old tomorrow here on EWTN Radio, so we're just going to have a conversation about whatever tomorrow.
And until then, have a beautiful and blessed day. We always ask St. Joseph, please pray for all of us. See you real soon.
EWTN, teaching the truth.
Not surprised to hear that your words of affirmation, you are so good at that. You find something nice to say to everybody that calls in. That is